everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Rob Bechtold from Nola Smokehouse, bringing you Nola Food Podcast number 16, I think it is now. Today on the show, we have Leah Seras from Tulane University. She's going to be talking to us a little bit about her culinary program that she has over there. Nola Smokehouse is proud to announce that we are going to be popping up a couple of times coming up real soon at the Bricks Bar and Grill at 735 St. Joseph Street. On November 28th from 5:30 till 10 p.m. I'm doing a whole new menu. Y'all come out and check me out and show your support. I would really appreciate it. We are also popping up again at Toop's Meadery on December 2nd. That's a Sunday from 11 to 6. And they are located at 845 North Carrollton. You can find out more about both these great places at thebricksnola.com and toopsmeadery.com. And if you'd like to know more about Nola Smokehouse, check us out at nolasmokehouse.com. I have a Nola Food Podcast page there. We are run 100% off your donations. We have a donation tab there, so if you want to help us out, that's a way to do it. If you'd like to be on the show or you just want to give me a shout out or a music suggestion would be helpful, please contact me at nolafood6@gmail.com. The best way to get in touch with us. Also, we're on Twitter and Facebook and all those good places. So y'all sit back, enjoy the show. Here we go. Hey there, everybody. This is Rob Bechtold from Nola Smokehouse, bringing you Nola Food Podcast. Today we are at Tulane University. We are in the cafeteria. I got Chef Cam Boudreaux here.
What's up, y'all?
From Killer Po' Boys.
Wow.
And Miss Leah Seras, the program director here at the Tulane Center for Culinary Medicine, right?
Indeed.
Okay. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we are also highlighting ladies in New Orleans food, and she is our second guest in this month, so y'all stay tuned for many more. And tell us a little bit about what you do here in New Orleans when it comes to New Orleans food.
Sure. We just started a new program in March that has a few goals. Our primary goal is to educate medical students here at Tulane on nutrition and food. So we're actually doing hands-on cooking classes that I've been directing, writing curriculum for, that we've run now twice. And actually 4 times. I was lying. And so we're teaching the medical students culinary and nutrition knowledge and skills, and so they can take that in front of their future patients. We're also getting them comfortable with communicating these ideas that we're teaching them effectively to the public. So we're doing a lot of community outreach, doing free community classes, healthy cooking classes for the public. Again, all hands-on. Everyone gets to cook food. And I'm teaching the medical students to take these over so they get comfortable delivering the material. So we're doing community outreach, internal education, and then we also have a primary goal of doing research on the effects of what we're doing on the community and on the medical students.
And this is kind of a unique program, right, as far as I know?
It is. No medical school has ever done anything like this, and up to this point, medical schools have really extremely limited nutritional content built into their curriculum. So this is our way of bringing it in so that they actually understand the principles. We think the cooking hands-on aspect is really important.
Yeah, and like the ability to like have this holistic healing, perhaps, and it probably in the long run would save people money and resources, right? You know,
sure. So it is, I guess, in effect holistic, but we're really careful to let everyone know that what we're teaching is evidence-based.
Right.
So it's all been proven to be effective. But yeah, everything we teach has to be cost-effective. We aim for our plate price to be under $2.50 a portion.
Okay.
And oftentimes it's well underneath, which is a big barrier because people think that healthy food is expensive, and we want to show them that it can actually be more affordable in a lot of ways. But so we're showing not only how to cook, but how to plan, how to shop, everything you need to do to...
And how that relates directly to the health and...
Exactly.
Controlling whatever ailment there is at that point.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I'm going to back it up a little bit. And so I've known you for a little while, and you're good friends with my business partner, fiance, April.
Yes.
And you guys have known each other for a lot longer than I've known you. And you guys met at Johnson & Wales University.
We did.
But let's go further back than that. Let's just give us a quick little bio, and let's talk about kind of how you got involved with cooking, chef culture, food, into culinary school. And then I know you've done some interesting work past that, too. So
yeah. It's always interesting how people evolve to where they're at. You just never know what things are going to affect you. I was always interested in the kitchen and cooking. Didn't think I wanted to do it as a career per se because...
On the line, actually getting burnt.
Yeah,
and cut
the long hours. And I knew I wanted to get a college degree in education. And when my young, naive self didn't realize that you could go to culinary school and get a degree. So, and focus in particular areas that might not just be restaurant ownership. So through my mom, I learned about Johnson & Wales, and I did a little research. We visited, and I went. And what I really liked about Johnson & Wales is after you get your associates, you can then go on for bachelors in different areas, in which I decided between then and a little later to focus on nutrition, which I always kind of had an interest in helping people and just, I guess, taking care of yourself. And I always tended to like healthier foods, I guess, anyway, lighter foods. So I liked that I could take it in another perspective of healthy eating rather than just
being like the restaurant chef.
Exactly.
And which is a lot of people in culinary school want to be the restaurant chef.
They do. And, so interestingly, it's interesting you say that. I think a lot of students in culinary school don't know other avenues to take besides just restaurant work. So you were asking a little bit about my other experience, and one was adjunct teaching at Johnson & Wales after I was done going to school there, well after, about 5 years after I was done schooling. But I always made a point to tell students other options that were out there. A lot of what I've done, and that there's other avenues besides just restaurant ownership. Because as we know, a lot of people who try to own restaurants don't end up succeeding. Right. They don't have the skills or the knowledge. It just might not be the career path for them.
Yeah. The talent doesn't follow the dream.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've also heard like really high profile restaurateurs like McNally, the guy that does Balthazar and all those places in New York, right? Just say, you know what? Like in interviews, after looking at 25 years in the business, it was Andrew Carmelini said this, and he's like, in an interview I heard in Heritage Food Radio Network, and this is a guy that had worked for Baloo, chef de cuisine at 2 places for years, owned successful restaurants, and he says, we've done everything right, but one thing that was on our side was timing and luck. And with his group, and like that can be really true. But yes, for people with a passion with food that want to work in food, you don't have to just be the restaurant chef. There's so many avenues out there, especially as food and chef culture, gains more of a prominence in our culture, in our general, pop culture, as well as just everybody. It's on people's tongues. What are we eating? How are we getting it? How's it grown? It's great topics of conversation now that have prominence in our society, which is awesome, So you're at Johnson & Wales, and obviously you're doing some internships or externships, and guys, this is the month where we were kind of talking about some gender issues in food, and we wanted to hear some great female voices in Nola food and food in general. So touch up a little bit about that. Like, what has been your experience being a woman in the food service industry, regardless of whether your position here, teaching, education,
positive or negative?
Yeah, positive or negative. And I know you've done some consulting work and some restaurant work as well. So.
Sure. Yeah, I've done a lot of different roles. So there are definitely some challenges with being a female in the food world. But there are also some advantages, I think. The challenges are that gender bias and a lot of, not all, but some males getting that kind of machismo point of view that have issues taking orders from females. Right. Some that believe females, for some other reason unknown, that females cannot be strong in the kitchen. You kind of have to prove yourself a little more. But once you show them that you can, you often gain great respect from people when you can hang with them. And it's, sometimes there are girls that can't keep up, but at the same time, sometimes they aren't given the opportunity to learn the way the males are. And I've come across that in many aspects in life, sports and such, growing up. When you're paired up against a male, sometimes it's hard for people to choose one or the other. But some of the advantages, I think, are that being a female in a male-dominant industry, if you're good at something, you tend to be able to stand out a little more because there's not as much competition, really. People who are really good at one certain area. And I think people do appreciate some qualities that I would say women have in general. Of course, that's generalization as well. But when they can find a female that has strong culinary skills and as well as maybe say organization and has good people skills and
interpersonal skills.
Yeah, exactly. I think you offer a lot to an organization and people realize that. So it does give you an advantage in those ways.
Well, I'll definitely, like in the male-dominated kitchen where it's like the big restaurant and it's the boiler room of machismo, when there's a lack of that because of gender bias, maybe the chef doesn't want to hire a female. And I know I told this story last time, we were on the show about like how I had to change the way that I use my name when I moved to a different city because people thought I was a chick trying to get a job that maybe they think a man should fit, So I don't know if I've ever told you that. Like that's why I go by Cam. I was Camille until I moved to New York. Sent a resume out with Camille Boudreau. Nobody calls me back. Send one out with Cam Boudreau. Same resume. Same exact everything. Get a call back to trail for a job.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so but there isn't that temperament, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know. It's like being on a sports team, I guess, man. Like the locker room all night. It can get overbearing. And, it's definitely not my dream for my organization at all. So
I always felt it was an advantage to, besides just giving people a piece of paper when they can meet you and interact and just see that, for me, that I was a strong female that could hold my own, that I wasn't going to have those characteristics that they typically associate with females, like, I guess, whinier and not being able to handle things like getting a burn and not being able to handle stress and on a line when in a high volume period. And then they just from getting in front of them, so any females out there trying to do something for yourself, get in front of people, show them your strengths, talk up your strengths, and just get them to give you a chance, and usually you'll be able to prove any of those stereotypes incorrect. Which is good.
I mean, a passion for food, the commitment to bring your vision, and the ability to make things happen is not gender specific at all, and like that's what it needs.
I think it has a lot to do with heart, and I've seen women in the kitchen with a lot of heart and women in the kitchen with not that much heart.
Just like with males.
And the same thing with males, is exactly what I was going to say. But that's the difference that I've seen in the kitchen.
Sure.
If you can, it's sort of like running a marathon and finish it and not giving up and keeping on, and just pushing through. That's what gains you the respect, I think, whether you're a male or a female in the kitchen. The boobs come along with it and long hair, but in the middle of the Saturday night rush, it's about, hey man, can I borrow your shallots? Because I'm going down. That's what it's about.
Exactly.
So I think the heart has a lot to do with that too. I wanted to ask you, through being a woman in the field, have people helped you more because you're a woman? Trying to maybe get on your good side or flirt or anything like that. Has it helped you in that way?
I don't know if it's helped me. Those things have definitely happened. I think I'm probably more annoyed when people try to offer a hand just because I'm a female.
Right. Yeah.
So when people try to offer that, I usually just politely kind of push it away and defer it back to them. I don't want any special treatment. I'm a competitive person. I want to show that my worth, whether or not I'm male or female. So I guess it could. Well, everybody can take advantage of a situation, you know. And I probably have at one point or another, even if I didn't notice it. But more than
I
anything,
have 2 daughters, and I know that they can turn the eyes on Daddy, and they know how to get their way through me and avoid Mom altogether. So I know women have that attribute. I guess it's about standards or whatever. If you use that to get ahead, or if you just use what's in your head.
I try to use what's in my head, but like you said, I'm sure that plays to my benefit at points.
So you've done some interesting work too. Doing some consulting and working with a lot of different companies and brands for a lot of different goals. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started out my career out of college after I'd worked in a good amount of restaurants and in a variety of capacities, doing research and development for a consulting company in Rhode Island. Worked right under my boss, who was a huge mentor to me. And I just learned a ton about, it was a small business. We literally worked out of his basement, but we did really big projects. Doing product development for retail, wholesale, for grocery chains, for restaurants, for ingredient purveyors. So we do value-added products. And being a consultant, we do it for multiple people at a time. So,
were these startup businesses that...
It went on really every direction. Some were startup, but most were pretty established. I mean, we would do work for large seafood companies, for instance, that we'd do value-added seafood products for all their, go into Stop and Shop and Shaw's, and, which would be equivalent to grocery stores down here that are more in the northeast and the north in general. BJ's, and then... So we would do that. We would also do trade shows. I'd run trade show booths for people like Nestle, for example. And we would do presentations to show our ingredients or our foods that we've developed to large chain restaurants. So there were a lot of aspects to that. And then I worked, so being a small business, I learned a lot about budgeting and doing the books and just managing clients, managing projects.
I can imagine that would have been your hands full with these big corporations, and it's 2 or 3 people kind of clicking away at computers in the basement. It's like, hold on, we got Procter and Gamble on one line.
Yeah, exactly.
put Nestle on hold.
Yeah. It was really interesting. I learned a ton from that job, and I attribute that to a lot of my successes since then. Yeah, so I did that for about a good 5 years. Still very good friends with my boss, and still a good mentor to me. Yeah,
there's not an asset to sell yourself to other organizations. It's like, hey, I used to do business with these people selling $350 million a year of this week.
Exactly.
So.
I also opened a lot of restaurants in that job, which was really interesting.
That would be like the brand development part of it or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, so we would, before they'd even have a location, we'd write their menus and do presentations. We'd pick out all their, order small wares, create an inventory, help with the design of the kitchen.
Were there chefs creating these menus?
That was us. So this would
be like the more ownership directed.
Exactly.
Somebody's trying to build a concept as a businessman. Maybe they're coming from the service. A
lot of them were not from the industry, but they wanted to own a restaurant. Okay. So they knew we were, more versed in that than they were. They realized that wasn't a strong point. A few of them didn't succeed. It was good lesson in that, but a lot of it was for the same reasons, over leveraging themselves, etc. And few were still doing really, really well. So that's awesome. Yeah, and then they'd hire management, and they would take over what we provided them with.
You'd set up the systems,
exactly,
and they would take over the systems.
Exactly.
And if they executed the systems or not, that was up to them.
Exactly, and that was sometimes what the problem was, or that was sometimes why it was successful, just depending on that management team that they would hire.
Well, so I've opened up some restaurants, and again, it is such an ordeal.
It is.
You wouldn't believe, from every utensil to small wares Just order a dry storage, a basic pantry for dry storage is just.
I'm trying to organize the dry, what goes where.
I know.
And how's it make sense? Like, sugar to the left, sugar to the right.
You get your racks and they don't
difference.
fit. It's always an issue, and there's always construction or something like that.
Yeah.
There's always some sort of issues. How many restaurants do you think you opened up in here?
Let's see. I can think 1, 2. About four big restaurants, and then we would also do kind of the Gordon Ramsay Hell's Kitchen thing, where we'd go fix troubled restaurants.
The end user, or end measure, right? Like, how are we going to fix this? Let's call a consultant. Okay, let's do it. Right?
Yeah. And again, sometimes it was successful, sometimes it wasn't.
Did you notice? Well, a lot of those places just didn't have the system set up.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly.
And that's what I see on the Gordon Ramsay shows.
Exactly.
They're not labeling and dating. They don't have systems set up.
That's exactly, and that's really the best way to describe what we did is setting up some systems. I became a spreadsheet expert. Forms and inventories,
right.
That's what a lot of the chefs don't know is, Excel and,
exactly.
and stuff like that. We know how to cut,
valuable.
We know how to julienne, and I can break down a chicken in 2 minutes, but
doesn't mean you can run a restaurant.
Right, exactly. Teaching myself Word and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I got bounced to D.C. after the storm, and I took on a sous chef position that was pretty much over my head because you had to know Word and Excel, and it's the first time I ever saw a P&L, and I was just like, oh shit, I'm in it now. But just like I took on cooking, I went home, I did some practice, I self-taught myself, and the next day I was able to understand what the terms were.
That's awesome.
But I remember being in Sapphire when I just first came to the city. I had a daughter, she was 2, and it was the first time I heard chiffonade in the kitchen. And I was like, oh shit, what am I doing in the kitchen? They're using chiffonade and stuff. I got a Food Lover's Companion, went home that night, and I started writing down the words that I didn't know, and you self-teach yourself. And
exactly.
I was 25 at the time,
You can be as successful as you let yourself be.
And personally and professionally, in the culinary arts or not, I think it's our goal to always evolve. There is, it's an evolutionary process, cooking, living, life. If I get stuck and do the same thing I'm doing today, 10 years later, that wouldn't seem like the proper course, And,
sure.
So you've been coming down here. You're from Ohio.
I am.
You've lived in the Northeast. You've traveled a fair amount. But you've been coming down to New Orleans for like 10, 11, 12 years now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And is there maybe the Proustian Madeline? Is there like the Nola food moment that I don't want to say sealed the deal, but like intrigued you enough to? I know why you're coming down here because of our mutual friend, how we know each other.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a special occasion, event, a meal, a place. Is there something that really stands out in your mind that's evocative of New Orleans culture, culinarily? That or a couple instances, because I know it's hard to limit it to one, but
I will tell you that one of the biggest moments for me was actually through April, through your fiance. And it wasn't a restaurant, it was going to her family's crawfish boil.
Oh, wow. Awesome, yes. Papa's famous crawfish boil.
It was an amazing... I flew down here twice before I moved here to go to that, and it was just... I think that really embodies the culture down here.
Yeah.
Kind of, social gatherings, music, and
fun,
eating.
A sense of community built around a lot of great food.
Exactly.
And some, like... beverages, usually, with some alcoholic beverages thrown in there, right?
Yep.
So, hey man, we got a party and eat all this crawfish because we bought it, and here we are,
That's my type of good time. I
nice.
mean, that just really embodies everything about New Orleans. And through April, I also got to try a lot of different food, off the beaten path. She's being a chef and from here and understanding and appreciating good food and what I would like. I remember the first time she took me to Photel Bay, and that's one of my favorite places still. The best pho I've ever had in my life, really.
Cool.
And I'd say those two really stand out, but definitely the crawfish boil wins.
Yeah, I love
it. What a great thing to be evocative, man, a crawfish boil, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's... and the cool thing about the boils are everybody they got their own recipe, everybody puts in something different,
They are very different.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Cool. That's awesome. So I know you mentioned the guy for the consulting. I always forget his name. What's
Walter.
Walter.
Walter's
maybe there's been some other mentors for you. Maybe not like in life. Maybe female chefs or authors or whatever. And they don't have to be female, I guess. But just some other mentors that kind of influenced you in your work.
Well, chefs, I'd definitely say Alice Waters and her work, Edible Schoolyard, the whole farm-to-table movement, which has become really important to me. I did work, one of my other million jobs I've had, I worked for in Rhode Island, a nonprofit that aimed to improve school nutrition. And that really developed me largely, especially with the whole farm-to-table locavore movement, because we spearheaded the Rhode Island Farm-to-School project, and it really started introducing me to farmers and, all the hard work they do and how it's so underappreciated, and just how nice that really nice fresh produce and chicken eggs and grass-fed beef, local grass-fed beef, just, how different and how underappreciated I felt it was. So working for that organization and the people I was surrounded with there, the name was Kids First, really developed a large part of who I am.
Because they have some really, and I remember I went to Catholic school, but, institutional food service seems to me to be the realm of industrial agriculture and manufacture, right? They've got that on lockdown.
Yeah.
It's set up for a low-wage job, on the service end of it, right? With institutional food that, has been just manufactured to death, right? It's cooked, heat and serve. There's not a lot of real cooking process. The vegetables are, either frozen or canned, and and it's like, man, that's not a good start for for kids. And that's what especially in the public schools, that's what the kids are eating. They're going to try to go learn after that.
My daughter at Grace King, they order pizzas.
Yeah,
they order pizzas for the kids to eat.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with school food.
She waits to come home to eat. Yeah, because she just doesn't have that option.
Well, what's sad is a lot of kids don't have the option of coming home to eat. A lot of kids, the school meal might be their only real meal of the day.
Right, that's the most home-cooked food they get.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which goes full circle to your work here with the medical school, right? Because hopefully with a little bit of community outreach, it's not about, eat this raw Brussels sprout, and that's what we want you to do. It's about enjoy life, enjoy cooking, and get flavor in there. But, where does the food come from? I think that fuel is going to determine eventually that the cost of shipping all this crap around is going to make it so it's really close with some of the local meats that I use, right? The cost of shipping domestic lamb to meat versus local, that's like that cheaper. I mean, they're both domestic, but like something that's produced on a mass scale in like Colorado or Australia even now, I can buy the local stuff for like a penny more.
And you're paying for that. When I was getting orders at a restaurant, I remember they would have the fuel surcharge on the invoice. So we're paying for.
Well, that's just the people that deliver it, right? Yeah. That's the company, not the fuel
not
that it costs.
Exactly.
When it came from the Central Valley in California, where half everything is grown for the whole U.S. and these big
same way with this seafood coming out of tiger shrimp and bassa fish, and imagine just the amounts of fuel that it takes to get that here.
Fossil fuel is huge. Yeah, huge savings. But there are a lot of issues with things like school food, but we're starting to make changes on little levels, and we are actually working with a lot of community organizations, and one of them we are working with is the Edible Schoolyard here in New Orleans. We work very closely with them on a lot of projects, so a large part of our goal is to involve other community organizations and community members, since we all have similar goals, to pool our resources and really make a bigger difference.
Yeah, no, and that's when, being a small business owner now, me and Rob, we touch on this a lot with a lot of our guests, and it's like, it's not something that we talk about because it's a fad. It's something that comes from our heart, supporting the local people producing the stuff that they care about, people with passion making stuff. And, that'd be awesome if eventually all school lunches could utilize those local products,
going in that direction. It's just going to take a while, like anything.
For it to become a national thing.
Yeah.
Handmade food made by people who care to feed to the kids,
Exactly.
Which would probably involve like some cutting boards and knives and not a box cutter and a frozen cryovac 5-pound bag of this, that, or the other. Now it's it's obviously it's cheaper to do it that way. So we'd have to look
some
at
schools. Some schools are doing it right,
right.
Because you see on the Food Network that some cafeterias are turning towards chefs.
There's
there's
a great movement in New York City, which you should actually look into. I'll get the name of the organization, and they've done a lot of work in some public schools up there, where it's like they start with the salad bar. They put a salad bar in with a lot of options, and they start testing. And I think what they do is they'll test the recipes with the kids, and some of they're reinstituting like kind of a home ec period where the kids in the school, are involved in the creation of some of these menus, right? So it makes it, a little more translatable to them, I guess.
Yeah.
What goes hand in hand with, you can make it a learning process. Hey, if we're going to have pizza today, what goes on that pizza? How can we make that pizza a little more healthy
and make it
instead of pepperoni,
exactly.
let's go with some vegetables.
I actually did that in Rhode Island a lot with making the schools healthy.
And it is you can't just throw them tempeh. You have to make it to where they want to eat it also.
Exactly. And that goes with healthy eating in general. And removing a lot of the biases that people have. They expect things like tempeh. It doesn't necessarily need to have tempeh. We can utilize the same ingredients that you're already using, in a different fashion, like beans. Everyone here loves and accepts red beans and rice. Why can't we do a version of that that's just, a little better for you, that incorporates more vegetables, less salt.
And less lard.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You don't need a pound of lard.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for 6 people, we'll throw in a half pound of cut up sausage instead of 1 ham hock, three sausage links, like 1 pound of pickled pork, and
that's the kind of principles we really try to teach and get across.
And with that, there's nothing wrong with that access. That's what the choice is, And I cook rich food. I sell food to people, and but also I feel like I try to have a balance of some stuff in my sourcing for that richness. I try to get the best ingredient possible, and
when you pack a lot of flavor into that sandwich, and different flavors, and I think that's what makes you unique, and is doing the whole new school pool boy thing is using those flavors in interesting ways,
right? Because it's my vision, and it's been our journey, where we've been, like that back to that evolution thing. So all right, where are you eating tonight?
Well, let's see.
And maybe not just tonight, but
in general.
Where should we be eating? Like where should we eat? Where do you want to eat? And who do you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I'd first like to give a shout out to you in April.
Okay.
I'm not saying that because I'm sitting next to you, but I live in the Marigny, and I don't feel like there's a lot of access to when I want to eat out and get served to things that aren't really heavy and made for the tourists, and just
sometimes you don't want jambalaya and a pork chop.
Exactly. Exactly, and sometimes I do, but when I tend to eat out, I don't tend to go toward those. So I do actually eat at Killer Po' Boys quite a bit. I love how you support local foods. I love that you have fresh, healthy options. And I love your guys' passion, and the price point is right on. And I love Aaron Rose, so it makes it in a nice little package.
Yeah,
811 contact.
Yeah,
it's like food, booze, and good times and good vibes all wrapped into one. Man.
It's really just I feel good going there. I feel good supporting you guys, and the food is awesome. So I appreciate that, and I'm always on the lookout for more places like that. Recently, I tried. You guys were on a list somewhere, and there was a lot of other hole-in-the-wall type restaurants on that list. And so I started exploring those because that's the kind of place I'm looking for. I'm still fairly new to New Orleans. I moved here in March. So I found a really good taco place called Los Paisanos from that, which is on Carrollton.
Oh, okay,
it's like
cool.
next to a laundromat. I've driven by it a million times, and I never ate there, and it's actually really good tacos.
Sweet.
I really appreciate it. So, yeah, you should try it out. I have some of those other on the list. But again, Fotal Bay, definitely a favorite. Just went there last weekend, and I've heard. I'm looking at trying some other places. I think the place I'd heard about was called Root.
Yeah, Root, Nola.
I've heard really good things. I want to go there. It sounds like something I would enjoy, kind of tapas style. I really like the whole
we did a podcast yesterday with a guy who went and said it was excellent.
Yeah. I heard the same thing.
They're doing some like show-stopping stuff up there.
Yeah.
And the multi-course tasting menus. I haven't been there. I've seen their menu once, but I know that the word is that they're making some cool plates, some modernist stuff there.
I think he comes from the Best Group.
Yeah,
the chef there.
Interesting.
Not sure, but Philip Lopez, something like that. Yeah, they're all over the internets and stuff.
Very cool.
Oh, but yeah, man, I've seen some of their dishes. They have like some real modernist presentations and techniques, ingredients, kind of, which not a lot of people are. Or like I said, cooking's always personal, and people, molecular gastronomy, blah blah blah. Like that word gets thrown around, and it's like there's some people in either camp, and I think that what the whole the broader view is that transformation of ingredient by a chef into a plate. When people say molecular gastronomy instead of like a modernist cuisine, for me that just means that you're willing to try new techniques and new ingredients for the transformation. You know what I'm saying?
It's another gun in your arsenal.
Exactly.
As a chef.
And it's like if you
why wouldn't you want that?
Exactly.
And obviously, as any businessman, if your vision isn't going to be economically viable, then maybe you'll live on in some Flickr photo pool for a while, but your shit's probably going to get shut down. But a lot of the guys that are pushing the envelope and dining by using new ingredients and new technologies seem to be somewhat successful at it. Where they get a lot of like granicots and Ferran Adria, and and it's like I don't think there should be a camp one way or the other. Like if you have access to technology to cook, and you know how to use it for your vision, and it fits into your vision, then by all means, don't, please go ahead. Like, immersion circulators are great, man.
Yeah. It goes back to evolution. If you want to stifle evolution, you're stifling, creativity, you're stifling growth and shit on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, maybe, maybe Rob, starts experimenting with transglutamate, like that meat glue stuff. Now that's natural products.
Yeah, I used to play with that.
It is a fairly natural product, man. It's like a protein extract. I don't think I don't think it's made in a lab in New Jersey. I don't know, but like, there's a lot worse stuff being put into food. Okay?
I think there's a way you can use it too. I'm not gonna fuse scallops and halibut and call it scallopit and turn it into something cheesy.
Yeah.
But you can use it in some different salumis or something like that, and actually create a different way to eat something.
Exactly.
If you're gonna be cheesy about it, it's gonna come off as cheesy.
And there's good and bad ways.
Yeah, use it. To evolve.
Exactly.
Well, that's a lot of the technologies were being used in industrial manufacture. They just got translated back on a smaller scale for chefs making plates, mostly in fine dining restaurants. But cooking under pressure been going on since not in plastic bags, but cooking, canning, that's been going on since the French Revolution.
Pressure cookers.
And then, a lot of these larger food chains started developing the bags that were just heated, so they had consistency. And I think Jacques Pepin did a lot of work with that, with Howard Johnson, I think, when he came to the States.
Wow.
Yeah, that was in his biography. And he was, the dude that, was making all of their menus and cooking their food and shipping it out to them, So a classically trained French chef who had worked... the last job he had in France, I think he cooked for the prime minister, or the president, the French president.
Wow, very cool. So just because you're doing, traditional cooking doesn't mean you can't appreciate what modern culture is and are bringing.
Yeah, we don't. Look, give me a couple years, man. I want a CVAP oven, right? I want the coolest vacuum sealer possible. I want immersion circulators, man. I just don't have space or money for that stuff right now, So,
love to have a combi oven at home.
that would be the tits, right? Those things are awesome.
Yeah.
But you started off po' boys on hot plate.
Yeah, right?
You know what I'm saying? There's
sure
visions and there's seeds, and it grows from there.
You can't have it all at once.
One of the coolest jobs I had, in my opinion, on the line as a line cook was up at Fatty Crab in New York, and we used one recipe would literally you would take a mortar and pestle, right? Yeah. And then another step of the recipe, you're in the combi oven. You're using the circulator. You're using you're packing stuff up in a bag to cook sous vide.
Yep.
And then like the next step of the recipe is like take your really sharp knife and cut a pint of lemongrass into chiffonade, right? So it was awesome. It was like, wow. Like that is technique, man. Like you can go from all the way back because of the end results you want to right now, and that's all at our disposal. And that's the joy of cooking in 2013. You
got to kind of change your thinking with that stuff too. I worked with a CVAP in DC, and the chef didn't want any color on the sea bass. There was this lemon gremolata that went on top, and that was going to CVAP in the oven, and I was like, so no color. We're not going to sear it at all. There's no color, no texture. And he was like, trust me, and he put the dish together and it worked. It was like butter, and it worked with the textures that he had with the sweet potatoes and stuff like that.
Sounds really good. I want that now.
But I mean, Barton Seaver at Hook, give him a little shout out. He taught me about sustainability, and that's something that wasn't ever taught to me in the city. I've never heard the word before. Didn't even know what the fuck it meant.
Yeah,
I had to actually because I would look up on the internet and dictionary and sustainability. I couldn't really grab it, and the way he explained it to me is you can use a resource forever without depleting that resource, whatever that is, seafood or agriculture or whatever.
And that's the way it hasn't been going.
And that's the way it doesn't go, But there are little seeds in the world, New York, D.C., California, that have these little green areas, and I think maybe eventually it'll spread throughout the country. But coming back down here, Restaurant Depot, and it's just styrofoam even above the office, 3 layers high styrofoam plates.
White box.
5,000 years to get rid of that shit.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, more people are going in that direction. I learned a lot about sustainability from the farming industry. Yet another of my jobs. I used to be an assistant farm manager and did farming in Rhode Island. Right before I moved here, actually.
I was part of the No Farm, No Foods coalition in D.C.
Yeah, very cool. And I learned how farming can be done, and there are some great models out, great sustainable models about how to grow food, but we really had our own sustainable models. We fertilized our soil from our chickens, and we had their coop was on wheels, so we could wheel it around the farm and removable fences. So
sort of like Poland's doing in polyface farms.
So we just move it around every few weeks, and then 6 months later we plant there. And that's how we fertilize.
And that's how they used to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then and also too in the Northeast, because that's where I've been. They have a better infrastructure for stuff like composting, or like the people that are going to make a lot of compostable waste, like restaurants, have a network for people that would use that compostable waste, like the small farm. Now, New Orleans, the wrong way away from anything like that, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And it's hard
seen it a lot.
It's just the choices as a consumer that we try to make down at the shop. It's just buy the best that we can right now, which is mostly post-consumable recyclables for our disposable wares. And eventually I'd like to get something cooler. I've been looking at bamboo stuff.
Very cool.
They got the bagasse, which is the sugar cane. And that's 60 awesome. Days. It's gone.
I
mean, that's something that
corn plastics.
Look into.
They're out there. I mean, I challenge chefs to in the city and other cities. Go out there and find something that's better. People will appreciate it.
They will.
Me as a small guy, I got to use the $9 case of styrofoam.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I got to, or my price point goes up, and then I'm losing money. But the big guys, there's no reason you can't. I mean, we're talking pennies on the dollar, and from 60 days to 5,000 years, that's easy, guys.
Yeah. And the more people use it, and the more they demand it, the more available the product will be at a cheaper price.
If the consumer demanded it, I think if the consumer was like, well, I'm going to have to bring my Tupperware because I love coming here. I come here once a week. but you put my stuff in styrofoam and I'll feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes people are going to have that conversation with, you know, where they're spending their dollar.
Yeah.
And the dollar is king.
Well, that's
in this America.
You know,
if you want to change something, throw a dollar at it and see if it happens or not.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that with like whole wheat pasta. I think is a great example. When it first came out, it was expensive and it tasted like cardboard. But people started demanding it. They're like, really, this is an easy way I can get more whole grains in my diet. You know, I can have whole wheat pasta. So as people started demanding it, more companies put more resources to the R&D, and it became cheaper for us to buy. And now you can buy really decent whole wheat pastas that don't give off the horrible flavor and texture that they originally did. There's a wide variety of them.
Depends on the use and use. It's
not right for every application.
Yeah, no.
That's true.
Well, I eat whole grains, man. I love whole grains.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it's like you were saying, everything in moderation and in the right setting. So something like spaghetti, you know, you can have whole grain spaghetti, and it doesn't make a big difference, right? Usually, for me, anyway. Now, if I were going to do maybe like a nice olive oil and garlic and just keeping it light, so I might want a white pasta for that application, but. It just depends.
Yeah.
My point was that there's...
I feel you. The market is going to dictate the consumer.
Yeah, exactly.
With their money.
And that includes chefs in the restaurant, and that includes the consumer at home. Mm-hmm. As people ask for these things more, and they start supporting it, you know, if we start small and support it in our own way, it'll eventually come to fruition and change.
So do you find that you use, like, nutrient-dense, you know, ingredients and products in your own life?
Yeah,
from
I do.
From your education?
Absolutely. I preach what I teach.
Yeah.
And the white pasta, all the nutrients are taken out, white flour.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I eat like that, you know, 90% of the time. 80 to 90, but then I still indulge myself.
Right. No, she's balanced.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
I still like, you know, I give an example of mussels. If I get a nice brothy bowl of mussels, I don't want whole wheat bread to dip into.
Yeah, of course.
I want my nice crusty baguette, you know, my white baguette. Yeah, you know. So everything has application, and you know, I don't eat steak a lot, but when I do, I eat one that's way too big. But you know, I use that extra money I get a nice grass-fed steak.
Right.
I prepare it the right way, and I make sure I really, really enjoy it for what it is. So everything in moderation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How
can people find out more about you? Or do you have any websites or anything you'd like to share with us?
So you can find out more about the Teaching Kitchen. We have a website through Tulane, and we have a Facebook page. Our Facebook page can be found under T as in Taylor, USOM. It stands for Tulane University School of Medicine. Kitchen, so TUSOM as in mother, kitchen. That's the Facebook page. Same for Twitter. And we also have a website through Tulane. So if you go to tulane.edu and you type in Teaching Kitchen, it'll take you to our site. I can be emailed at Seras, L as in lion, S as in Sam, ARRIS as in Sam, at tulane.edu. And probably get you whatever information you're looking for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast this week.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
It's a good. Like I said, you're the first person in the field that's from an education standpoint that we've had on. So you know,
very cool.
It's cool to like have
very good view.
We want to have. We want to hear stories that maybe aren't heard out there. You know.
Sure.
And like, what did I joke about? Like yesterday with Jay Duco, or when we did the other recording, like, you know, it's not every show can't just be like me and Rob like talking to a chef that one of us worked with 13 years ago. And hey, you remember when I carved that dick out of that carrot? You know, so which is great. It's good banter, but you know, we're trying to do something a little different with the Nola Food Podcast.
Thanks for including me.
Thank you so much.